unfortunately, we can see a lot of challenges in this industry where people come in and make the money and they don't have the financial mindset to take care of it.
They eat it all, yeah.
And people, and again, like early in those 20s and even when we started, a lot of the negativity was people like, oh, my friend lost all his money in that thing. I know a couple who lost, tens of thousands of dollars, and it's like it costs you $500 to start.
Literally impossible, yeah.
And I couldn't get my head around it. I'm like, I spent $500 to start. The worst I can lose is $500, right? Like this is a no-brainer. But how did they lose $100,000? And then you start going to the events and you start seeing income earners walk across the stage, and then you go to the event next year and they're not there. And it's like, what happened to Bob and Mary? Like, why aren't they walking across the stage? And you find out that they've over leveraged. And that L word again, like leverage is a beautiful thing when you know how to control it.
Welcome to the Excellence Project. My name is Eric Worre, and in today's episode, we're going to hear from Andrew Logan, who's the author of The Way Out, 7 Steps to Financial Freedom Through Network Marketing, and him and his wife, The Way Out Together, How to Build a Network Marketing Business as a Couple, from Andrew and Angie Logan. We're going to talk about finances. We're going to talk about how to use your network marketing business or any business to create enough cash flow to have a second business, which is your investment life, how to turn that cash flow into passive wealth. If that's interesting to you, I think you're going to like this episode. So with no further ado, let's jump into my conversation with Andrew Logan. Andrew Logan, how you doing?
Great to be here. Thanks for having us.
I'm glad to have you. And you came all the way from where?
Over from Australia. So a little bit of a journey yesterday.
Quite a trip.
Yeah, I mean, we used to do it all the time, and then a few years ago, the world stopped for a little bit. So it's good to be back. I had my first trip back here a month ago, and it's just good to be back in America. I love this. I used to live in Colorado actually a little while ago, so it's great to be here. I love this country.
Yeah, me too. Tell me your craziest Australia COVID story.
Oh, craziest Australian story. Look, where we live, we're very fortunate. We years ago moved out to a very small, beautiful little mountain village, and so COVID for us wasn't that different. We just, we had this beautiful house, and we were living very happily doing what we were doing. And I would joke that we'd been preparing for 5 or 6 years to work from home and be stuck at home. So, I mean, a lot of Australia really had some unfortunate times, some really struggles. For us, it was fun. I shouldn't say fun. It was good. It was good to focus on family. I think the biggest thing was that I was supposed to fly to Whistler to have a week skiing with some friends March 2020. And I was only just thinking about it when I was driving in here today, that was really when COVID hit and punched us in the face. We, and my mate's like, everything will be fine, just come over. And then you wake up the next morning and your hotel's canceled, your flight's canceled, and then Canada went down and then Australia went into lockdown 24, 48 hours later. So that was the one trip where all of a sudden it just came to a screeching halt. But, for us, it was really about focusing on family and focusing on those really important times. Now it's just great to be back on planes and seeing the world and catching up with good friends.
Right. Yeah. This idea of some of us in network marketing were really prepared because we've been working from home for a long time. And so there's this little runway at the beginning of pandemic that got people off, and they're like, you want a side hustle from home? I've got one. You can come build. Were you able to build in that season?
Yeah, it's funny you should say something like that. The initial sort of 6 to 12 months, especially, were crazy busy. And I think, like Simon Sinek really talks about, like your early adopters and then your laggards. You got your crazy people out the front and your early adopters. And, my gym owners, fantastic friends of ours, but those classic laggards when it comes to technology. And, even them reaching out to me and saying, can you teach me how to use Zoom? Because we're going to have to move the gym classes to Zoom. And so it forced people to have a look at things that maybe they dismissed earlier in their life. And so that was great. Obviously, it created some other challenges later just with culture and team building and events and community and all those amazing things that are the glue for your team. But really, in those early days, it was fantastic to, be prepared and ready for this influx of people looking to move online and looking to open their mind that there are other ways to create an income.
Right, right. So how long have you been involved in network marketing in general?
So just over 11 years now since I joined.
And what did you do prior to that?
So my background was physiotherapist, we call them in Australia. And it was very much right from a very young age, I was academically strong. And so your teachers, your parents, family, friends, everything, you're smart, go to school, get good grades, go to university, become a doctor because doctors make all the money. And that was the pathway. And you didn't know what you didn't know. And I'm born 1982. We're still in the 80s and 90s. There was no internet yet. And so you just followed that path. And
were your parents the same path?
Yeah, my parents, hardworking, university educated. My dad was an engineer. My mum was a teacher. She had a science teaching background. My brother was an engineer, and you just followed that path. And, it was at university when that little itch started kind of in the back of your mind of, is this the pathway that you're meant to go down? And are there other pathways out there? And so I started looking around, I started investigating, but I could never find the vehicle. I knew that financial freedom was out there, and you read the Robert Kiyosaki's and all those great books, but I just didn't have the vehicle. So I'd spent all these years at university. I didn't end up going into med school. I sat the entrance exam, but I decided I just finished 4 years of university and I needed some time off. I needed a little break before I went into med school. So I put my entrance on hold, and I thought I'll just work for a couple of years and I'll just travel and I'll just explore the world and I'll just see what else is out there. And the reality is I did every single thing ever in the world except network marketing, because you'd heard all the myths and the misconceptions and the negative stuff out there. And so I looked at all these other ways to create an income.
You'd heard rumors. Your family wasn't involved necessarily.
No.
Were any friends involved?
I'd had a couple of friends when I was in my university days invite me to some meetings, and great, strong, established companies still going, nothing about the company, nothing about their products, but wrong me, right vehicle, wrong time, wrong me.
Didn't fit your model.
No, well, it didn't fit my personal development, certainly at that point. And it was very old school in that it was, go to the hotel meeting and everyone wears a suit. And I was a university student. So I had to catch the bus to the hotel meeting. I couldn't afford to drive. I didn't have a car. I couldn't afford parking or anything like that. And I couldn't afford a suit because you're a broke university student. And so it just wasn't there for me. So I did have a little bit
had a look, but you weren't, but no interest.
Yeah. So it just didn't seem to fit me. So, but there was,
so you were trying all these other things. Were you doing that just as an in-between your graduate school and med school?
So I finished physio, finished my undergraduate, went out and worked, and ended up going into business partnership with a friend. And so we had a practice, and it was profitable, and you're working, and it was very much that
physical
therapy practice. Yes. So it was very much that, this is probably the path, small business ownership and get into property investing. And I was going to achieve financial freedom through that path, but probably at about 60. And I wanted to achieve it at 30. And in fact, I set the goal of being financially free at 33. And that was my little, I guess we didn't have hashtags back then, but that was like my little hashtag. How do I be financially free at 33? And so you have traditional friends and family and that saying, look, you've made it. You've got a small business, you're making a profit, you've got some property investing, you've just got to keep working hard, and then, you can start traveling the world in your 60s. I wanted to travel the world in my 20s and 30s. And so as a physical therapist, I did get to travel the world because I worked with the Australian ski team and I worked with athletes, and I did get a little bit of travel with that, but I wanted more. And, the enemy of a great life is settling for a good life. And, I kind of have this good life, but I was like, how do I find the great life? So yes, I was out there learning currency options and commodities and Forex trading
so
and
super
property.
Curious about all this stuff.
So curious about these vehicles. And then of all of them, you fall backwards into network marketing and then discovered, hang on, I can't believe it took me 10 years to find this. And I found it. What's really cool is I found it at 30, and then at 32, I was able to sell my business and go full time essentially. And so out of nowhere, we got that financially free at 33 goal, which was really, really cool.
Interesting. So parents never gave you big pressure to go back to medical school. They're okay with you following your entrepreneurial journey?
I think they were, I think for them, they were possibly a little bit disappointed there for a little bit that you've come this far. Yeah. And again, you've gone through all of this.
Finish what you started.
Yeah. But they've always been fantastic. And everything they did was always with the best of intentions. They put us through private school, they sent us to university, and they worked their butts off. But it just wasn't going to work for me. I was that square peg in a round hole. And I think, when we talk in business about those entrepreneurs and the leaders and all those people we're looking for, they're people who just don't quite fit the mold. And I always just had that, there's got to be something else for you. So now these days they're 1,000% and, they're so good with their grandkids and all those sorts of things. But there was a little bit of skepticism. And again, there was that everything you've got is good. Why are you going to jeopardize everything you've created so far? And that was a challenge. That was a leap in that, sort of 31, 32-year-old stage there 10 years ago when you've worked so hard to get to this point and you're going to have to put all that to the side to go down this other path. And again, it always just came back to that. The enemy of a great life is settling for this comfortable, good life.
When did you come to that conclusion?
When Angie fell pregnant.
What the enemy of a great life?
That was when it was like, we need to chase this great life because
why wouldn't having, being with child be like, a good life's fine. Maybe I'll be a good dad. I'll be a good husband. I'll pay the bills and it'll be fine. Because I think a lot of people, they have big hopes and dreams when they're young and then life kind of beats them down. They get an apartment in the meantime before they're going to go chase their dream. Then they get a car before they chase their dream. And then they get start paying for insurance. And then they get some credit card or student loan debt. And, pretty soon all their dreams seem like unrealistic and they look around and they say, well, I guess everybody else gave up on their dream too. And they just have a job and it's fine. And what caused you to say, I want more than that?
It's a really good question. And I guess there's probably two parts to it. A little bit is what you were saying before, because from a very young age, my early to mid 20s, I had that, you've got to work out a way to create wealth. You've got to work out a way to have more financial freedom. I wasn't burdened by debt.
Why was financial freedom a priority for you?
Because I wanted to live my life by choice. So,
when did that conclusion come to you? Because were your parents not doing that?
No, I mean they worked really hard, but they had professional jobs with employers and grew up in a house where they just worked really hard, and we never wanted for anything, but we so often we wouldn't see either parents. They were. Yeah, I mean, we never had overseas holidays. I'd never been overseas until I left home and went off on my own. We had mum especially worked late nights, and you could often just not see her for days. She was just so dedicated to her career, so dedicated to her job, and so a little bit of the side story is that I'd been working on investing, so we weren't burdened by that debt, and it was always like, you can buy the dream car later, you can do all those sorts of things later, get your money invested, get your money working. So I had the business and we had 5 properties at that point when Angie fell pregnant with Jack, our second. And the real clincher, as you say, was
hold on. You gotta help me understand. You go from going to school, trying out a bunch of things to having 5 properties.
Yep.
How did you figure out a way to get 5 properties while you're just kind of bouncing around different careers and jobs and businesses?
So when I finished university and I got a job as a physical therapist, I stayed in that job essentially for 10 years. So with the job, I was able to travel with sporting teams and athletes, and I got my little travel fixes there. And after a couple of years of working there, that's when my boss at the time offered me a business partnership. So I stayed in that same job essentially for 8, 9, 10 years. And again, in those meantime, so my mindset was always, 9 to 5 to pay the bills, and then kind of 6 to 9 p.m. at night to create the life of your dreams.
And what were you doing in the 6 to 9?
So you're reading books, you're watching courses, and you're doing online courses all about, again, property investing, about Forex trading, all these things that.
So here's what I want to know.
Yep.
You were hungry to learn.
Yep.
You wanted to figure out wealth, not just income, not just cash flow, not just hard work. You wanted to be smarter about it, create a life.
Yep.
What worked? Because you tried all these things. What created the actual revenue that was able to help you start leveraging your existence?
Well, the answer is none of them.
Really?
I failed in most things. I mean, the property worked to an extent.
But how did you do it?
So I bought my first one. So one of my very good friends' dad was a property developer. And so through, living with my good friend and, osmosis and hanging around him, I started to learn the property game. And so he helped me get my foot in the door with my first property.
So how much money did you have to put down on this property in order to be able to?
So I bought a block of land for $105,000.
Where'd you get $105,000? This is where I'm trying to get to.
Yeah. So by this point, I had about $15,000 saved.
Okay.
So I was working hard. So I was single. I was a single male, and, with a good paying career, physical therapy pays a good 6 figures.
Mm-hmm.
And again, from that very young age, as soon as I left university, I didn't go and buy the car straight away. I didn't, I rented very simply. I lived very, I guess, frugal life because I just had that, you don't need to spend yet. You want to be investing before you spend. Invest first and spend what's left over. So that first year of my career, basically, I managed to save up about $15,000 to $20,000.
Okay.
And he had a new block of land, and I know some people are going to laugh at this, but it was a block of land on the beach for $105,000, which you probably can't do now in 2023, but you could do back then. And we were living a little bit out of the city at the time. So I managed to save up the deposit for the block of land. And then another 6 months or so of hard work allowed me to save up more to then build a house, a simple little house on that block of land.
So you had $15,000 to go towards a bank.
Yep.
The bank gave you a loan for the balance.
Yep.
Based upon your income.
Yep.
Okay. So now you have this piece of land that is not going to rent for anything. You got to put something on it.
Yep.
So you have to figure out how to build a house. So were you saving up again now?
Yes.
To do a down payment on a house build?
Yes. So in Australia, they have a first homeowners grant.
Uh-huh.
So that is something where, for your first, the government gives you a little grant to help you. So there was an assistance from the government, and I should mention that obviously.
Sure.
And that's something that it's, different countries will have things. But yes, I continue to save up basically because, when we talk about wealth creation, it's we're just scratching the surface on all this, but there's places to store your wealth and there's places to create your wealth. And land is a great storage. It's a great place to store it and let it sit there, but it doesn't make you any money. So I've got this block of land, 1/4 of an acre near the water, and that's all lovely, but it's giving me $0 a week.
Right.
It's costing me money every week because I've got to pay the bank. But again, you're a young single guy with a good wage, and I at least had the discipline with my budget and work hard. And my parents did instill that work ethic in me for sure. And so I had that discipline. I had that bigger picture mindset to, okay, you've got to just keep saving. You've got to start putting money away to get the home loan to buy the house.
So I'm trying to follow the roadmap. You got the job.
Yep.
You save up $15,000. You put that as a down payment, 15% down payment on a house. And now you have a mortgage that you're using your job to pay the mortgage on this piece of land.
Yep.
And how much was going to be the house that you wanted to build?
So that was 2005. I bought the land. 2006, I bought the house for, it was 170. Built? Yep. Built. I think it was about $179,000.
And how much did you have to put of your own money into that to make it happen?
I think, you can test me here, but not much because of that grant.
So the grant helped you with some.
So between the grant and the equity that we'd built in the land so far, between the grant and the equity, I didn't have to put down a lot up front. The bank would use that equity and the grant as security to lend me
So
more.
like how much? Give me an idea.
I probably needed to put about another 5 to 10 immediately.
All right.
It was at the back end when you start
Yeah. So let's
choosing
say
tiles.
so the big lesson here is you lived below your means in order to be able to create a situation where you could have more choices in the future. You're willing to delay gratification as a young man.
Yep.
Which is a great lesson for everybody. Delay gratification as long as you can on your earned income, especially, and get that money working for you. So you got a little piece working for you, which takes some creativity. Found this piece of land, you lock it up. Anytime it's on the beach, it helps, right? As far as property value. Then you build a $170,000 house on that land, use all the avenues available to you, but the rest of your savings is probably in there.
Yep.
So now you have say $270,000 invested into this piece of property. What is it worth by the time it's done now when you add it all together?
So it's probably worth about $270,000 at that point. I mean, it was a very simple house. A lot of people, when they invest, I think, we want to go for that big fish straight away. And to me, this was the very first step. So it was a very simple house on a very simple block. And all I wanted to do was just start learning about the game. But you can't learn to drive a parked car.
Yeah.
So it's like, well, you've got to start putting some money in. You've got to actually put some skin in the game.
So did you move into the house?
Moved in,
turned
had some
it
friends.
into a frat party?
Yep. Had some friends move in with
Beach
me,
house.
which was great fun. And again, we had fun and your network is so important. And thankfully the friends I was with, we all had those bigger dreams. We were still young. And so again, we weren't going out and spending crazy things with our money. We were enjoying life together. And we'd have a lot of fun, but we weren't buying our cars straight away. We weren't having those big trips straight away. And they were very thankful to have a very cost-effective budget place to live as well. So it helped each other. And we all lived together. We had great fun. And we did that for about a year.
So you're still working in physio.
Yep.
You got friends and roommate in this new house that you built. You have home ownership.
Yep.
Did that for a year, and then what?
So I actually then took 6 months off.
Off of what?
From physiotherapy.
Okay.
And I went and lived in Aspen for 6 months. Had some fun, got some fun out of my system.
How did you afford to be able to do that?
Well, I was working. So I was working while I was there.
Okay.
So one of the things that kept me going in physical therapy was that I could get a job anywhere in the world. And again, in those early stages, it was like, well, how do I see the world and create an income? Because it was always like one or the other, but it was always like, well, how do you do both? How can you see the world and earn an income? How can you have more time and more money? And so I was willing to, it was a lot of paperwork, but I was willing to go through that paperwork and go through that process to then actually go over and work in Aspen. So I got to ski, I got to see the beautiful views, I got to, live in that incredible part of the world. But I was working, but that's totally fine because for me, it was like, well, if I can get up in the morning, do a couple of laps and then put in a hard day's work, I'm doing okay.
Yeah.
As a 25-year-old guy at this point, I'm along that pathway. It's not where I want to be yet.
And
there's a way to do it
house
better.
is rented back in Australia.
So put the house properly for rent then. So you've got proper tenants with a proper property manager taking care of it. So I got home from that trip. I went through the Caribbean, worked with the Australian cricket team, got, again, like some really crazy life experiences and stories along that way. That's then when I came home. So I think we're talking 2007 now, 2007, 2008. That's when I came home and my boss offered me a partnership. And again, that was to me, I was like, well, okay, here's your way to accelerate your cash flow. Here's a way to not only get cash flow, but profits. And I'd been reading your T. Harv Ekers and I'd been reading your Think and Grow Riches. And it was like, well, profits are better than wages. So I'm working my way up this ladder. So with that extra profit, with that extra ability to, work with the bank and negotiate with the bank, that's when it was like, well, one property is good. How do I get two? How do I get three? How do I get five? And
has the house gone up in value now?
So that original one we sold about 18 months ago with COVID. There was that huge growth in property market. And
no, but back then.
Back then, yes. Back then it had grown.
Okay.
And
but so that equity helps you a little bit.
So again, different countries have different lending laws, but certainly in Australia, again, with a good income, a good wage, and you start earning some profits, you've got a rental income coming in now as well, and you've got some equity. So I was able to use that and leverage that first house into the second, and then leverage the second one into the third. And it was about one a year. So it was the accumulation of assets at that point. And that's where, to me, it was, again, people are like, well, you've got 50% business ownership, you've got properties, you've made it.
Yeah.
And it was like, well, no, I'm at about step 2 or 3. Like there's other steps to go yet. But I think for the average person, it was like, well, there you go, just stay on that path. And so it was at this point when I started looking around more, and I started going to events and going to courses and reading books and finding people online. And that's when I got into some of the crazier things out there. And
like what?
And well, you got into commodities trading, and
how'd that go?
not very well.
Right.
And I think, we have like AI trading bots now. Back then you had those like C dot buy dot systems and expert advisors, they call them, in the currency markets. Again, I did a video on this just recently. You could make money, but I would give it back and then some very quickly. I accidentally once put an extra 0 on a trade by accident because I was tired. You've worked a long day and you see a trade open up, you put an extra 0 by accident, but it goes well. And it goes well, and you wake up the next morning, you've made $10,000, and you're a young kid. So, okay, well, like this is it. This is my blackjack moment. This is my grand slam. And 3 or 4 days later, it was up to $100,000. And straight away, I'm mid to late 20s by this point. You've made $100,000 in the currency markets. You're smarter than Wall Street. You know more than every advisor out there. Next morning, I'm down 120,000. And that was an interesting lesson, obviously, at that time. And again, I was single, and I'm very glad I went through that lesson as a young single guy, because I had to wear some expensive consequences. And it was an incredible lesson in money management, in expectations, risk, and risk equals reward. No, risk equals risk.
Yeah.
And so that was a huge lesson for me along that way. But thankfully, I could pick myself back up, and I just had to put the blinders on and just go back to working really, really hard and saving up.
That was one of the crazy things. What are the other crazy things you tried?
I wrote a book on back pain.
Back pain?
Yeah. As a physiotherapist, you saw a lot of people with back pain, and I was sitting there thinking, 80, 90% of the patients that come through, you give them the same little education speech. And at the time, I got to create a system. I didn't know those words. I didn't know what I was doing back then, but there's a way to create a system on this patient education. And so I wrote a little ebook on how to treat your own back. And again, it was working fine in the practice. I went out into the big wide world, set up a website. I literally sold one copy of this book in that whole.
Was that person related to you?
Well, outside of the direct patients that I sold it to, yeah, one person online. So I published a book and sold exactly one digital copy. And again, I needed to learn marketing. I'm sure the book was pretty crappy now looking back, but it was my first attempt. I obviously needed to learn more marketing. So yeah, we looked at commodities training. I wanted to build websites. I wanted to do all these crazy things because, as we said, I knew that I knew where I wanted to be, and I was on the road, but I was driving like 20 miles an hour. It's like, how do I actually get over into those faster lanes? All these people are starting to overtake me, and seeing people get there, there's got to be a better vehicle.
Do you regret any of the things that you tried?
Nothing at all.
No, because you kind of need to go through that path. And most of the time, we all have somebody who knows somebody who did really, really well in crypto, in trading, in whatever, something. And depending on their personalities, some of them, I had a friend who was highly, highly leveraged in real estate, 2008. And he thought he was fine because he was leveraged in residential, commercial, land, every type, because usually one type would be down, the other type would be up. But when they all went down same time, I was there when they were auctioning off the stuff in his 30,000 square foot house, all of his fancy art that people were saying, well, I'll give you $50. And he's like, no, there's 50,000. He said, well, I'll give you $50 anyway, because, what do you need a giant dolphin for?
Yeah.
Or whatever, that kind of stuff, because he went from 150 million to maybe like 5 million in 90 days, net worth, on paper, because, the learning these lessons from, over leverage, learning lessons from doing something that you don't really know much about, or some guru's going to try and teach you the magical formula, to riches in this particular direction or other. So it sounds like you were like testing out just about everything there was to test out to figure out ways to generate more cash flow. But correct me if I'm wrong, the ultimate goal was to generate the cash flow in order to be able to invest into real estate. Is that accurate?
Well, yeah. So for me, real estate was the end game to work towards. And I think there's a number of really great things that you've talked about in there, where there's cash flow and there's wealth, and it's a step-by-step process. And me, with my young mind, it was always this, well, how do I go from zero to financially free? And you look at it and it's like, well, yeah, is it in the Forex market? Is it in the, the now crypto market? Is it in the commodities market? All those sorts of things. And it was like, well, it's the only way to do it was to take stupid risk, because I didn't have enough money at the time. And so I was doing crazy, stupid, risky things because I'm trying to go from 0 to 100. And so what I had to figure out was better ways to improve my cash flow, and then put that cash flow to work, create an asset that could buy assets, and then start creating that wealth loop. And that took me years to truly figure out. Talking 2008, I bought my third property just before 2008. And it was the one property of all of them. It's the one property where I listened to a guru salesman on stage say to me, this is an amazing investment. You should buy it. And it was the worst investment we ever made to this day. And even we eventually pulled ourselves out from under it and sold it years later for less than we paid for it back in 2008 at the height of the property game at the time. And again, single guy, thankfully at the time, I was the only one that wore the consequences. There wasn't a family or children to have to go through that really painful stage of me. There was periods there where, like fasting's really big now. Obviously, I was fasting back in 2008 because I couldn't afford to buy food. Intermittent fasting is easy when your income is intermittent, I would say now.
Right.
And, I owned the physio business at the time, and you've got staff in there and you've got to pay them, you've got to pay the bills, you've got to pay all these rent, and you get to the end of the week and there's $0. And it's like, well, I guess I'm fasting for the next couple of days. And you tell people, I'm just trying to lose weight. I'm just trying to get healthier. I'm reading about this fasting thing. I just couldn't afford to put food on the table. But again, thankfully it was only for me and that property purchase. And the biggest lesson from that is whenever someone is working so hard to sell you an investment, if it's that good, why aren't they keeping it?
Yeah.
Like I always learned that when the really glossy brochures, the really amazing promises of return and all that kind of stuff, and it's like, well, if these things return such a great income, keep them. Like why are these people so desperate for me to buy something that's making them money? No. And that was a huge lesson for me. So yeah, that was a big lesson. Again, there were so many big lessons along the way. And so I found network marketing at 30, a week before my 30th birthday. And, once I got my head around what we truly had, the vehicle and the opportunity and what was there from a cash flow point of view, and the way to create more cash flow so that we can then use that to buy for us property as the wealth asset, and we could really accelerate that wealth loop. It was just, and the great thing was that I'd learned all those lessons through my 20s. So we came in with significant financial experience, no success yet, but significant financial lessons. I mean, again, we had a small amount of success. We had a number of properties at that point that were just slowly churning away, but we couldn't live off them. Again, they'd provide us financial freedom in 20 years'
They're
time.
part of the plan, but the plan wasn't done.
Yeah. And so all the losses, all the lessons, all the horrible times set us up for when we finally found the holy grail of cash flow creation. It was like, and when it finally clicked for me, because I'm a male, we take time, like we can be stubborn, we can have egos. It took me a little bit of time to just put a few things to the side and really, really fall in love with this industry and see what we had in this vehicle. All those lessons were suddenly going to pay off.
Right.
Because we knew what to do.
Talk to me about, so what you're saying is you found network marketing as a vehicle to be able to create the cash flow, to create the wealth.
Yep.
You finally found the cash flow thing that the job wasn't doing, all these other things that you were trying. Because I mean, online right now, there's a lot of distractions. People are promising the world, and if it's so great, why don't they just keep it themselves and not tell it to anybody? But everybody's looking for, and what did financial freedom mean to you? I mean, specifically, you say, I want to be financially free. Was there a number? What was it?
Yeah. Well, so if we just talk the number, so when we started, I guess financial freedom meant that neither Angie or I had to work. So when Angie fell pregnant with Jack, so Jack was our second, and I guess the winding path to the answer from before was that Oceana, our daughter, she was 3 or 4 at the time, and I would come home just exhausted every day because I gave my heart and soul to that business. And I'd be up at 5 a.m. to get the gym in. I'd be treating patients from 7. You'd get home, you'd finish at about 6, no lunch break, just patient, just working your butt off. And you'd come home and you're not the present father. And that broke my heart. That ripped me to pieces. And again, the outside noise was like, that's normal. That's normal. And you know what? You just got to suck it up and deal with it for another 15 to 20 years. And then you can be free. But I'd come home every evening and, she wanted to go to the park. She wanted to, play Barbies. She wanted me to, throw her up and down in the air and all those sorts of things. And I'd be trying to keep my eyes open. I'd just be on the couch and, Angie would cook dinner and I'm just sort of, half napping and then just taking myself off to bed because I'm just on this hamster wheel. So when Angie fell pregnant with Jack, that was the snap point. I could talk about when it all just in that brain just, okay, this isn't working. And I'm sure we could do it for 15 to 20 years. It would work, but I can't. I can't say to Jack, wait 15 years before dad has the energy and the time to hang around you. To Osh, wait till you've graduated and left home before mum and dad can actually take you on a holiday. So that to me was when Angie and I sat down. I'm like, well, look, we got to do something different. So the original goal was imagine if we could make $300 to $500 a week. That was our original crazy goal. And the first event we went to, and you write the check, and we wrote $300 a week by November because that's what Angie was due in December. And it was $300 a week was the first stepping stone that Angie could stop work. So if Angie could stop work and at least she could be a full-time mum. And, through the business, I could pull my days back a little bit. I'd have to work big days some days, but not the others. But imagine if we could make $300 a week. And then once we got there, okay, let's sit down again. Imagine if we could make $2,000 a week, because $2,000 a week, I can go right back to a couple of days a week. And again, then we got to $2,000 a week. Well, what if we let's go again? Let's double down. If we can get to $4,000 to $5,000 a week and we can sustain it, I can sell the business and we can start to be that full-time family.
So when did you first open your mind to network marketing? What caused you to open your mind to network marketing as a vehicle?
So it's a really cool story because that first, I remember starting just before I turned 30 because I remember, it was a health related product. So I was doing a health kick and I was doing it to lose weight for our wedding. So you gotta look good on your wedding day. Because you're stuck with those photos.
Last forever.
Yeah. My wife is a 14 out of 10 knockout. No one was looking at me at all. but I still wanted to hold my own. You know, I think like I had to at least hold my own in those photos. And you got that stubborn little bit of weight that wouldn't go away. And a friend had been nagging me to try these products. But I remember it was just before my 30th because Angie threw me a surprise 30th birthday, and I'm on like day 4 of this kind of crazy health kick thing. And then she throws me a birthday. And so that whole, reset, start again on Monday morning. But again, we were so focused on the wedding and we did all those sorts of things. It wasn't until about 6 months later. And I was actually, it was a really sort of sliding doors moment, chance meeting almost, because I was over in Whistler. I was over in Whistler working again for the Australian ski team at the World Cup. And again, I get to see the ski fields. I get to have this great trip. Angie and Oshie are at home. And, I get to do this, but the kids didn't get to come along. And, that's when we were wanting to come, like when I was coming home, we wanted to, try for a second child and all those sorts of things. But when I got home, my sponsor, the whole time I was away, she's like, you've got to come to this event. You've got to look at this thing, come on, financial freedom. And I kept saying no. And I'll talk about why I said no in a sec. But when I got home, she messaged me and I just got off the plane, and it's a bit of a brutal flight, Vancouver to Brisbane. It's about 15 hours and I'm exhausted. And I just want to get home to see Angie and Oshie and hang out. And my friend messaged me and she said, I want you to meet these 2 people, and they literally go home today. You've got to meet them today. So I had to text Ange and say, look, I'm not coming home. She wasn't that excited about the fact that we hadn't seen each other for months. But this was a couple, Sean and Carrie Lynn, and they were up line of her, and they'd lived this completely opposite life where I just spent 3 months in Whistler working without the family, and they had just spent 3 months in Australia. They were Canadian, and they just spent 3 months in Australia with their family having an amazing holiday. And I just remember there was such symmetry, in what they were able to achieve versus what I wanted to achieve, and the opposite as well of me being over there alone and FaceTiming and all that kind of stuff, but not being there able to take my daughter skiing and all those sorts of things. And here they are, like walking along the beach as a family. And I was like, that's what I want. And so again, had I flown home a day later or had I just said, look, you know what, I'm tired, I want to go home. But I went and had that meeting with them. I had that lunch with them, and they didn't tell me any secrets. They didn't tell me anything crazy. They just showed me the vision of what this industry could give. And they just showed me how you can create an incredible life with your family, and you can see the world, but have the freedom to walk along the beach. And, it's great for you. Again, it's great for your career to work with athletes, and you get the certificate on the wall, but they're a lot of work. Athletes, it's long hours, late night bus trips, early morning gym sessions, and I was exhausted. And they just painted the vision that, next time you go to Canada, you don't have to get a job and you can take the family and all those sorts of things. So I came home that night and I said to Ange, like, this is it. What we've found, this is it. And I've spent 10 years making mistakes and messing up and all that kind of stuff. This is it. So up to that point, I'd been a happy product user, and you tell a few mates and you
Sure.
dabble, but that was the day. It was like, tomorrow morning, we're in. We're not just dipping the toe in. We are head first into the deep end. We're going to events. We're reading the books. That's when I bought your book. That's when we started going to events. And that was the moment that everything changed. And I always still, and we still keep in contact with those friends all the time because.
What did your wife think of this decision?
She was skeptical as well. And what she actually said, Angie's incredible, but she said, I will support you, whatever you do. Whatever you do, I'll support you. And it was the first time we'd been together however many years, we'd been married for 6 months or so. It was the first time in all of that I said, I don't want you to support me. I want you to do this with me. And that again was a big thing for our marriage, a big thing for our relationship, because up to that point, we'd been living quite separate lives. I'd get up, go to work. She had her job. We'd sort of balance Ocean and that in the evenings. But I went to my gym. She went to her gym. She had her friends. I had my friends. All those sorts of things.
Hey there, just a quick interruption, especially for network marketers. Whether you're just starting out or if you're ready to level up, GoPro Academy has just what you need to take your network marketing business to the next level. Get step-by-step training on how to get started or restarted the right way, and then get everything you need to earn 6 figures or more and become a network marketing pro. To learn more, just visit goproacademy.com. I've helped millions of people learn how to recruit, tens of thousands of people to reach 6 figures, and I've personally helped more than 1,000 people achieve 7-figure incomes and above in network marketing. I can help you too. Head to goproacademy.com today, and I'll see you there.
And this was like, no, I don't want you just to support me. I want you to do this with me. And if we're going to do this, I can't do it without you. I can't do it with just your support. I need you. I need you with me. And that changed everything.
What if she said she was going to support you, loved you, support you, but you go do your thing? Would you have still done it?
I would have still done it, but I'm confident I'd be making 90% less. I would have been stubborn enough to still do it. If she just said, I'll support you, I would have still gone down that path, but it would have been, I would have been pushing uphill the whole way. There just would have been physical resistance, emotional resistance. I don't like to think of the answer to that question.
Yeah.
Because I think it would have caused friction even at times. But thankfully, because she's incredible, she said, yes. She said, what do I need to do? And I said, well, tomorrow morning, we're going to sit down and we're going to write out our goals. We're going to write out our vision for the family and all those sorts of things. So
this was what year?
So this is 2013.
Okay.
Yeah. And at that point, financial freedom meant that we didn't have to work, that I could sell out of the business. That was, again, the next stepping stone in.
How long did it take before you were earning enough to be able to sell out of your business?
18 months.
18 months.
Yep.
So you're working hard, kind of like, but kind of full-time / part-time. You're focused on it.
Yep.
But it was an exit strategy.
Yep.
You're serving your business as much as you had to while you grew your network marketing business. Okay. Did you have success early? Were people responding to you the way you expected them to? What were those early years like?
The early years were fun. Let's put it that way. There was a lot of ups and downs. It was a roller coaster ride. I think initially we had great success initially in that Angie and I both had good networks, and especially with my work and knew people around the world and knew some decent athletes and all that kind of stuff. The first biggest lesson, the first sort of downward part of the roller coaster, it was all uphill for the first, all up for the first 6 months. There was negativity from some friends. There was negativity from business associates and that kind of stuff. The town we lived in wasn't exactly a progressive, open-minded town, so there was a lot of negativity in the town in general.
What did your parents think?
They weren't exactly supportive. Again, it was that
what is our crazy son doing?
Yeah,
he should have been a doctor by now.
Can't you just be happy with what you have? Was kind of the underlying that came from the parents. That came from some people very close to me said, why can't you just be happy with what you've got and look at what you're going to risk in order to get here? So that was sort of the first negative hit, and the first massive lesson was that we didn't have systems. We were just hustle, just that solopreneur out there hustling. Angie has Jack. Jack comes along December 24th. He was born. It's Christmas. There's a new baby in the house. And we just put our hand up and said, hey guys, we're taking a month off. A little post in the Facebook group, taking a month off. We'll see you late January and we'll do some stuff then. And we came back late January or whenever it was, and our business was down 75%.
Yep.
Because we had no systems in place. We had nothing but grind. We had nothing but hard work. So that was the first lesson. And again, I'm glad it happened early while we could still recover. It didn't happen, when the ship was too big to turn around. But that was the first big lesson of, man, you've got to actually put some better systems in place, because everything was 100% reliant on you and Angie answering your phone.
Yeah. It was a job inside of network marketing.
Yeah.
Not really a business yet.
Yeah. Well, I love the word network marketing business because there's some really cool stuff in the word business there and what we have. But certainly, Yeah, we just had a network marketing hustle. And the second we stopped answering our phone, because you want to enjoy that period of Jack and the new family and everything, our business took a huge hit. But, we picked our socks up and we learned that lesson. And again, that's when I started attending more events and reading more books and personal development and realizing, hang on, you don't have systems for your new customers. You don't have systems for your distributors. You don't have systems to train the skills, and you've got to learn the skills and do the skills before you can go and train the skills. And my mindset was always, when we looked at it seriously, my mindset was always, you went to university for 4 years, you paid the university $100,000 for that privilege to go there. And you, certainly in physical therapy, it was 4 years until you're allowed to touch someone. They don't even trust you to touch a live human being until 4 years down the track. And so here you are 4 weeks into this thing and you think you're an expert. And it always bounced back to me of like, you went to university and physiotherapy is quite systemized. So if you come in with a sore back, if a 17-year-old kid rolls their ankle, if an older lady has a sore shoulder, the way we approach you is still very systemized in our objective examination, our subjective examination, and then you diagnose in the treatment. And you start taking these lessons from business. You start taking these lessons from your career. And we certainly took lessons from our financial education and my financial education in my 20s of losing money left, right, and center by going crazy. And once we kind of put all those together, it just was this perfect storm for us. It was the right vehicle and it was the right time. And we were ready. So we put better training systems. We put better everything in place. We trained our people better. We trained them to be more independent, to take care of their own people. And we started actually having a better plan for the cash flow that we were creating. And so that's what allowed us to come back from that big dip. So that was really through 2024. 2014.
Okay, 2014.
So yeah,
at that time, let me just ask a couple questions. Yep. You still were part owner of your business.
Yep.
You still owned some rental properties?
Yes.
How many at the time?
So we had 5 at that time. Yep.
Okay. So not real freedom yet.
No.
And you start building your business. How long was it before you said it was 18 months before you could sell your company?
Yep.
Okay. Sold your company. Were you able to get some cash from that, or was it earn out, or, did that help you with creating some extra wealth?
Yeah. So there was that 6 months or so between sort of sitting down, having that conversation with Angie, and then, essentially 6 to 9 months then when Jack was born. And then we had that huge dip.
Mm-hmm.
So then the next 9 months was always about rebuilding, but rebuilding better.
Yeah.
And that was the time then when I was able to sell the business. So we had great growth in that following year. So yeah, this is 2014. But at that point, that's when I left the business and I essentially walked away. And that's when we were all in to network marketing.
Yeah.
We didn't take money out of that business that could then accelerate our goals. We took a lifestyle decision out of that process to, we're going to leave town. We're going to start a whole new life, a bit closer to where I grew up, away from Angie's, nothing against Angie's family, of course, but just,
right.
we were moving to that new place where we live now. And so, yeah, it wasn't like there was a big windfall from that sale that allowed us to push through. It was the cash flow creation.
How long did it take before you felt like you were a professional as a network marketer?
I think from start to finish, it really took me 6 to 7 years before I truly felt
what,
that.
I got this.
Yeah. And again, I think back to, 4 years at university just to be able to apply for a job.
Yeah.
And then years on the job training. And so I always had that, this is 7-year minimum. And so
I keep hearing delayed gratification repeated over and over as one of the central points of what you were doing. So 6 or 7 years before you felt like, I'm a pro here. I'm solid. I'm not guessing anymore.
Yeah.
I'm not hoping to get lucky. So I want to fast forward to today.
Yep.
Today, how many properties do you own?
Well, right now, I think we own 10. We did own 14, but we sold off a few just with the the boom.
Right.
And I guess you get rid of the B minus and just focus on the A's
Yep.
and stuff. So right now, 10 properties, and we've also started to build the stock portfolio along the side. So using the sale of those ones to then start to build up the stock portfolio. So that's where we are right now. We've got a couple of little blocks of land too over in a little island in Indonesia, but that's a fun one.
Yeah, your book is called The Way Out: 7 Steps to Financial Freedom Through Network Marketing. So, what are do you feel like you've achieved financial freedom, or you're still on the journey?
I think we're always on the journey, because I like to talk about it like, you've got this beautiful view from your house, and we're very blessed to have a beautiful view from our house as well. But if you've never done anything else, if you've never been anywhere but your house, that horizon is as far as you can see. That's the world to you.
Mm-hmm.
And then for us, again, if rewinding 10, 11 years ago, the whole concept of financial freedom was just, well, maybe when you're 50 or 60, you'll have 7 or 8 properties. That's as far as we could see. But it wasn't until we walked down the path and actually we got to the horizon and a whole new world opened up. And so again, when we were sitting there saying, oh, $300 a week is incredible, we got to $300 a week and we start seeing people who are making $2,000 a week. We start hanging out and having lunches with different people and hearing better stories. And again, there's a new horizon that we've got to walk towards. And there's new landscapes, there's new challenges, there's new paths along the way. But we want to get to that next horizon, and we start to meet people who've gone even further. And so for us right now, where we are is we're incredibly grateful, but that doesn't mean we can't do much more.
Mm-hmm.
And we want to continue on this growth. And 7-year cycles, that 7 years it took us to be considered, I wouldn't even say a network marketing professional, but I at least knew what I was doing.
Yeah, you were
to a point where we were earning 7 figures and all that sort of stuff. But the next step was, okay, well, now we're hanging out with people who are doing even better. Like, what's the next horizon? And so I like to talk about it, people like that, where sometimes we can overwhelm ourselves with like, I'm here and I want to be on the other side of the world tomorrow.
Yeah.
And again, that was me at 23. And the only way to do that was to do really stupid things,
right?
Really risky things. But let's just get you to your horizon. What's your current horizon right now? Let's get you there. And then let's see the world that kind of opens up there. And then let's start the new path. Let's get you a roadmap to the next horizon.
So walk me through the 7 steps. I mean, if somebody wants to have financial freedom, let's say they're working a job right now or they're part-time in network marketing, how do you use network marketing? What are the 7 steps to get to financial freedom for whatever that means for that person?
Yeah. Well, I think if we look at it, as a process. So when I wrote my book, I really wanted to give people that complete roadmap of, it's not just making money, that we've also then got to have our money make money. And that's what we've really got to do if we're going to talk about financial freedom, we've got to go beyond the steps of just making money. So the book's essentially in 2 parts. So steps 1, 2, 3, and 4 are all about creating your story, going out in your warm network where we launch, and then we go out into our cold network and we start to learn how to market and brand and build new networks. And then we need to treat it like a business. And we need to actually start having systems in place and training and education and all those sorts of things. So that's part 1 of the book. And part 1 is all about making more money.
Create the money machine.
Yep. Create that cash flow asset. And then part 2 is all about how to actually put it to work. So we need to start actually having an investment mindset. We need to actually choose our vehicle. And we need to learn the difference between, again, money and wealth and assets and liabilities. And going through that process of really teaching someone step by step what to do when they've made their money. So unfortunately, we can see a lot of challenges in this industry where people come in and make the money and they don't have the financial mindset to take care of it.
They eat it all, yeah.
And people, and again, like early in those 20s and even when we started, a lot of the negativity was people like, oh, my friend lost all his money in that thing. I know a couple who lost tens of thousands of dollars, and it's like, it costs you $500 to start.
Literally impossible, yeah.
And I couldn't get my head around it. I'm like, I spent $500 to start. The worst I can lose is $500, right? Like, this is a no-brainer. But how did they lose $100,000? And then you start going to the events and you start seeing income earners walk across the stage, and then you go to the event next year and they're not there. And it's like, what happened to Bob and Mary? Like, why aren't they walking across the stage? And you find out that they've over leveraged. And that L word again, like leverage is a beautiful thing when you know how to control it. And leverage can work both ways. Leverage is a double-edged sword. And so a lot of the second half of that book is just understanding leverage of we get to leverage our social media. We get to leverage Zoom and we get to leverage systems and our company's products and all those sorts of things to create an income. But once we start getting out into the financial world and, how do you lose $120,000 overnight? Because you're over leveraged. Yeah. How did your friend go from 150 million to 5 in 90 days? Because they were overly leveraged. And leverage can be this beautiful siren call, especially in the markets, but we can lose the shirt off our back and more. So that for me was really the goal and the passion of really showing people that, to me, I don't like to say network marketing is the financial freedom endgame. Financial freedom is the best vehicle to put yourself in the fast lane to create cash flow to then get to wealth. Network marketing, yeah. Network marketing is the best way to enter the pathway to financial freedom, but it's not the end game. The end game is that we take this cash flow, this incredible cash flow that we can create, and then we turn that into wealth through smart money management.
I have a lot of people in that I coach and I work with that are big earners in network marketing, and they have money and they just literally don't know what to do with it. They give it to their cousin, they invest in their family's restaurant idea or somebody's car wash, or they blindly throw it into hyper aggressive funds because they're entrepreneurial by nature. Do you have some favorites? I mean, if somebody's has used network marketing to create an extra $100,000 or an extra $1 million in liquid cash. Mm-hmm. I'm not a financial advisor, and I'm assuming you're not either. But in general, without giving like a professional advice, what do you suggest they do with it? How do they get it out of their greedy little hands and into something that's going to serve them in the future?
Yeah. So great question. And I think we need to obviously look at that from, yes, this is not financial advice, but there are so many options out there. I think what we've got to look at first of all is, well, what are their investment goals? And so I like to ask people 3 questions. So are you looking for short to medium term, or are you looking for long term? Are you looking for an active investment vehicle or a passive investment vehicle? And finally, are you really looking for capital gains or cash flow? And if you don't know the answer to those 3 questions, then we're not ready yet. So
how do they get ready?
So that we get ready by reading good books, by finding a mentor, by surrounding yourself with people who know what they're talking about. So the difference.
How do you know though? Because everybody says that they have an answer. Everybody's out there trying to separate newly wealthy people from their money. Yeah. All these advisors trying to get percentages to manage, and percentages on growth, and percentages on top of percentages that they don't tell you about. And how do you separate through the people who are just trying to get your money from people who have your best interests at heart?
Well, personally, I've always felt that no one is going to take better care of your money than you. No one cares more about your financial freedom than you. So personally for me, it was educate. And then the more I educated myself, the more I could discern who actually knows what they're talking about and who's really out there just trying to offload some stuff that they don't really want anymore. And so again, personally, I like to try and separate the process of creating wealth and the result of creating wealth. And obviously when we think about financial freedom, and the very first task I do with someone whenever they reach out to me, whenever they want to help, the very first task I ask them to do is write out your ideal day. How does your ideal day start, et cetera? Where do you wake up? Who's with you? What do you do during that day? Now, what's that going to cost? So we can have this subjective, visceral, emotional attachment to our vision board, but we also do actually have to do the sums of, well, what's it going to cost? So for us, $300 a week meant that Angie could stay at home. The visceral thing was Angie was that full-time mum that could, be the amazing mum that she is. Well, that's going to cost $300 a week because that's what her job isn't going to bring in anymore. So we need to match our visceral and our subjective things together. Now, from that, we need to understand that there's so much excitement in the result, but the process is actually generally quite boring. And personally for me, the more boring the investment, the better it is.
So look for boring.
Because, well, I don't want to think about it, Eric. I'm busy enough.
So give me some examples of some boring investments.
I like property because you buy it and you put a tenant in, and then there's not much you can do. There's not much I can do for a year until that tenant writes back and says, can I stay for another year? And so, property, we talk about like property as an umbrella term. There's commercial, there's residential, there's industrial. And are you renovating? Are you flipping? Are you buy and hold? Again, is it house? Is it land? There's so many ways just to do property. First of all, you got to know, well, am I in for capital gains or cash flow? Am I in for the short or long term? Am I active or passive? Now, for me, I don't want to be actively doing anything with my properties. I want to use my energy either for our business or for our family. So I want to buy a very good, simple house that rents very well, and then I don't want to know about it. Again, I want it to be purely passive, and I want the cash flow from the rent.
Do you have a management team manage it for you?
Yep.
So you find a management company in your market.
Well, so we like to, reverse engineer it even. So we've created this great relationship with our current bank manager. We've created this great relationship with our property manager, created those great relationships with real estate agents. And now it's just reverse engineered where this is exactly what we want. The bank manager knows, the rental agency knows, the real estate agents know. This is what fits our investment portfolio. When you have them, let us know. If not, I don't want to hear about it.
See, like most of the entrepreneurs that I work with, they struggle with this because they're good at generating cash flow from their network marketing business.
Yep.
But that's kind of all they're good at. So to them, they're like dividing their mind and their focus on their cash generating business and saying, well, it's too overwhelming to go learn the school of hard knocks over here. How do I figure out how to become, because it took me 6 years to become a professional in network marketing with a lot of school of hard knocks. If it takes me 6 years to become a professional at real estate and I make a bunch of mistakes, I could lose a lot of money from making those mistakes or having the wrong partners or making the wrong decisions or being taken by somebody more sophisticated, not reading the fine print. How do you seem like you were curious from a very young age. How do they balance the mind share between what their income producing activity is and their wealth creation activity? Or is it just something that you must have the discipline to figure this out, or be constantly dependent on your income generating machine and not your wealth machine? Yeah.
Really good question. And the short answer is, thankfully I did it in my 20s, but not many people have that experience, right? If I had one superpower, it was that I'd made so many mistakes throughout my 20s before I found network marketing. So that was potentially a
inexpensive
superpower.
Ones.
Yeah.
And some good relationships.
In the grand picture of it all, they were fairly inexpensive, and you start building those networks. But I think, again, like let's look at network marketing business first, because I think it's really important where, again, in traditional business, if you make like a 20% profit, you're doing really well. By the time you pay all your staff and your brick and mortar and your rent and all those sorts of things, the leverage that we can create through network marketing is incredible. So I don't like to talk about it like a business. I like to talk about it as an asset straight away, that cash flow asset.
Sure.
So then what do we do with that cash flow? And I think with anything in life, when we want to go that next step, when we really want to experience the really amazing things in our life, there's always going to be a little bit of a dip along the way. So in relationships, there's the first kiss, the first date, the first things, there's so much excitement in that. But then if we want the really cool things like a beautiful marriage and family and experiences and all those sorts of things, there's going to be a little period where we've got to actually, okay, you know what? I've got to slow it down. I've got to have discipline. I've got to have commitment. I've got to ignore all those shiny, flashy things that are out there on a Saturday night and commit to what I'm focused on. And I do have to sit there and just master that mundane. So we need to say that with a healthy relationship, with a healthy business as well. Again, we hustled for so long. We had to stop and actually, you know what? We've got to build some systems here. We've got to, in order to have a really great business. So in answer to your question, at some point, if you really want to turn what you're earning into a lasting legacy, into wealth that lasts generations, if you want to change your grandchildren's life, then yeah, just for a little bit, you're just going to have to breathe and go a little bit slower in order to go faster down the track. You're just going to have to sit there and say, you know what? I've got to create the discipline of a budget. It's so exciting to talk about the latest TikTok trend, right? It's so exciting to talk about the next way to create the next bonus in our team, the next way to create that extra $10,000. They're so exciting. Talking about a budget, maybe not as exciting, but it's the budget and the education that allows us to create a legacy. And so I think that's one of the biggest challenges for people, obviously, is at some point we just got to slow down to go faster.
Yeah. Here's the challenge that I have is I know network marketers.
Yep.
And they have a very high risk tolerance. They're scattered. They're not organized. They're not highly disciplined. They're quick to spend, what they're earning. They think there's never going to be a winter. There's never going to be a difficult time. They're always about to do something. They're about to do something. I have I lost a dear friend recently. One of the most, prolific network marketers in the world, died without a will and knew she was going. And the disaster that has happened to the wealth creation that could have been for the people that she cared about, and the mess that it is now, because that wasn't done, is kind of normal inside of network marketing. It's kind of the standard. People making $1 million a year and filing extensions on their taxes. People making $1 million a year and getting into bad deals because somebody talked them into it in a weak moment. They got a bad partnership and now they're trying to figure out a way to get out of it. How do we, and by we, I say you and I, how do we as a profession somehow, because I'm guilty of it myself, somehow mature the network marketing earners and paint the picture that 5 years from today, 10 years from today, you should be earning passively from the cash flow coming from your investments in excess of what you're earning from your network marketing commissions, your network marketing income, far in excess per year. And that's freedom. So that, you got your cash machine, but then you also have a wealth machine. And how many generations do we want to take care of? And how do we want to handle that? How do we want to manage it? So I'm just curious because, you were curious as an early age to trying to figure this out. Then you found network marketing. Some people find network marketing is like, what do I do with this money? And a lot of them are just like lambs going to the slaughter, walking into areas that they have no business and no focus. They haven't studied at all, and handing their money over to somebody that will find a way to take it, or a way for them to lose it or put it at risk. How do we shift this mindset?
Whoa, how long have we got? Let's go. It's such an important question to ask, isn't it? And that's what really spurred me on in so many of those early years. Again, we talk about people you'd meet who were making 6 figures a week and now they're back at work. People who were making 7 figures and didn't know they had to pay tax. And a couple of years later, they're fire sailing everything. They're selling their running shoes because it's tax bill of years of and I think Warren Buffett says the greatest way to reduce risk is to know what you're doing. And again, to me, that's where we've got to educate ourselves. because the greatest risk is to give someone else your money and hope that they take care of it. The greatest risk is not thinking that life is going to punch you in the face at some point. I think in the shortest possible answer to your question is the only way we can do it is that it has to start at the leadership at the very, very top. And we have to create a culture where people see this as the greatest wealth creation vehicle, as the angel investor into your bigger dreams. And that's how we've always, again, people all build their team very differently. We built our team once it all fell into place and we really realized we need better training and education in our team. The focus was, guys, this is the greatest middleman. This is the greatest stepping stone on your way to create financial freedom. So we didn't just teach them how to build a business. We taught them how to create a better life. And so our leadership training had financial education, had business education in it. We actually sat down and said to people, like, if you ever miss an event because you bought a nice car and also I can't make it to the event because I upgraded my car, don't ever contact me again. We set that expectation in our team from a very young age. And maybe we lost some sort of shooting stars, but we built this really solid team of people that understood that we are creating a supplementary cash flow that can really change our lives if we understand what to do with it as well. Because, a fool and their money are very quickly parted, isn't it?
Yes.
And unfortunately, so I think, my passion, my desire is that we can change the culture from the very top. Because like you say, it's such a social media driven business that, well, hey, I've got to take the holiday to that little island and post a lot of photos about it. I've got to buy the really nice car. I've got to do all these sorts of things because it's great for my social media. And they all just end up being sugar hits. And we can only sugar hit so long before we have the sugar crash. And unfortunately, life comes along and really hits some people. And again, if nothing else, fortunately, I learned those lessons before I found network marketing, and I saw them unfolding in people I looked up to, great leaders, great top income earners who were broke 2 to 3 years later. And it was just always sitting down with Angie and I saying, you know what, that's not going to be us. That's not going to be us. And, when we did reach those great goals and we did start creating those 7-figure incomes and all those sorts of things, that's when I thought, you know what, I think we want to lead differently. And I want to create trainings. I want to write a book. I want to do things that help people, because maybe I can just help skew how society sees us as well.
Right.
Because I think, again, there's so much, if I rewind 20 years ago to when I first went to those hotel meetings and all the negativity that you heard and all the negativity we heard 11 years ago when I first started, and you skew back to all that negativity of, well, maybe society would see this industry differently if we actually treated it a little bit differently ourselves. And so as leaders, as top income earners, as people who really want to brand themselves out there and show this amazing model, I feel the responsibility, I feel the obligation to show people not just how to make money, but how to create freedom. And so I think it's a culture we need to create.
Yeah.
I'd love your help with it.
Yeah, for sure.
It's a huge thing. And I think that's the only way we can truly get it ingrained.
Yeah.
Is through culture.
Yeah. Let me see if I can summarize your answer. Your answer to the question is, most people are looking for somebody to trust. Who can I trust with my money? Who can I trust with my investments? Because I don't want the burden of thinking about it. And what you're really saying, I think, is trust no one. Trust no one with your money blindly. Make sure that you're paying attention. Make sure that you see where your money is. How many episodes of American Greed do you need to see? There's a show on here in the United States where they talk about this person was flying high and, but behind it was nothing real. And they tell these stories, whether it's, and I'm guilty of it myself, putting more money than I should into risky investments. And then, being embarrassed, even though it was a popular investment, all my friends were involved, afterwards, like going, well, that probably wasn't the smartest thing in the world to do. Or you hear about celebrities that trusted all their money to a manager or their agent.
Sports
or
athletes,
sports athletes, all of that. And they're broke because somebody else was making the financial decisions or finding a way to separate themselves from their money and hoping they wouldn't find out. It's just the oldest story ever. So I think what you're saying is build a money-making machine, network marketing being the best vehicle in your opinion, mine too. And then be a good steward. Make sure you can have professionals, but make sure you audit your professionals. Make sure you look at the people that you are trusting with your money. Make sure you're auditing your real estate managers. Make sure you're auditing the people who are investing and making sure that there aren't any hidden fees and they're not taking big swings or churning your account to make more commissions. You got to think in a lot of different directions and parts offense. One side is off playing offense. The other side playing defense, right? Defense and offense. You're protecting the money, but you still want it to grow. But at the end of the day, if you're not measuring your net worth at the beginning of every month and putting your eyes on it, focusing on it, and making sure that you're a steward of it, then don't complain when it goes down. Most people haven't looked at their 401k in a long time, or their retirement accounts.
Well, and that's the challenge, of course, as you say. There's so many challenges, but yeah, wealth is a team sport. It's a definite team sport because you have to have a team with you, and we have a great bank manager, we have a great accountant, we have a great real estate agent, but again, we don't blindly trust these people, and we don't go in 100%. We just started with one. So when we first started buying property, they were all with different managers, and it was a bit scattered because I was scattered, and I had 3 and Angie had 2 when we met, and so that's where we got to 5. And so it was all a little bit scattered, and then you start seeing, well, this person's responsible, this person's trustworthy, so we start moving more over to them. But it's I don't never check things. You're still constantly just keeping a finger on the pulse. And yeah, the greatest challenge in everything you say is making sure that we don't just become another statistic, because you see it in all different things. And again, network marketing gets the bad rap. Network marketing gets the rap over the knuckles in society because, I know this person that lost all that money. I know lots of people who made money in the lotto and lost it all. I know we know professional athletes that lost it all.
Nobody lost money in network marketing.
Yeah.
They lost money from other decisions while they were in network marketing, but network marketing was not the thing.
No one says you shouldn't play NFL because it's highly statistically that you'll end up broke or broken your body, all those sorts of things. So yes, we need to make sure that using your brain is incredibly hard. I think we'll put it that way. For most people, using their brain is hard. And even if we look at it, again, with my background from a scientific point of view, the brain takes up about 30% of our energy each day. And so it's quite challenging for people to put their brain to work. And so we can often just look at the easy path of, well, yes, I would have to think. Yes, I would have to audit. Yes, I'd have to read that book. Why don't I just go and put my money there? And again, I remember right back to 2006, 2007, when I was first sitting there on the weekends watching videos and reading books. And one of my housemates was like, what are you doing? We make all this money, just give it to someone else. They'll take care of it. I don't have the brain power at the end of each day to work out what to do with it. I'm going to trust someone. And then of course the GFC happened. And so that was a big lesson for them.
What was GFC?
The global financial crisis, 2007, 2008. That it was a big lesson for them. Well, actually, I was just blindly giving someone my money. And so when you talk about business deals and all those sorts of things, we need to go in educated. If you don't know what's going on, if you don't know how you're making money, if you don't have an exit strategy, don't put a single dollar in yet. Don't put a single dollar in yet until you do your education, because there's a sucker in every deal. And if you can't find them, guess who it is?
Yeah.
And so when we're looking at all those things, so it's not to be negative. And I think with so much of this, it's not to be negative. It's about dreaming bigger. It's about, I'm not here to say I'll never spend your money. You're going to have your paychecks and your playchecks. You're going to enjoy certain things, but it's about, what about if we dream bigger and we just put our brain to work? Now, the easiest way to put your brain to work is read someone else's book and they'll teach you what to do. Now, again, there's a lot of books out there.
You got to weed through what makes sense for you.
Yeah, but maybe you got to read 7 or 10.
Yeah.
But again, how many
figure out your strategy?
How many textbooks did I have to read to get 1 degree? That was my mindset.
The simplest idea that I've heard that I believe is a reasonable strategy for a person who's not going to be sophisticated soon. You tell me if you think I'm wrong. People who invest in the S&P 500 using dollar cost averaging over a long period of time. You can set it and forget it. You know, whether you're contributing once a month or once a quarter, you're not even paying attention to what the stock market, if it's going up, it's going down. You have the same amount, you dollar cost average, and over a long enough timeline, that's what, 7, 8, 9% is what it's been historically the last 100 years. That's not advice, but that is what I've heard from very smart people. Like Warren Buffett says, the average person cannot beat the S&P 500. He challenged all the fund managers to see if they could beat him with the S&P 500, and they could not. He was willing to pay him a lot of money if they did over a 5-year period of time. And and just in case he lost, he put enough money into, it was like $1 million bet. He put enough money into the S&P 500 dollar cost averages over that 5 period of time to equal what the money would be in case he lost, but he did not lose. So, and that's what Tony Robbins talked about in his money books. And I've heard from others, is just, that's the no, you don't have to have a lot of knowledge, experience, expertise, whatever. You dollar cost average into that fund, set it and forget it, and let it, don't ever touch it, that type of a thing. Do you agree with that as a like a default baseline if you don't know where you're going to put your money?
100%. And yes, this is not financial advice, but there's a paradox with freedom that I think, again, we want the really exciting things for freedom. Freedom comes from reliability. Freedom comes from a consistent paycheck from your company. The bonuses, the ups and downs, like, they're great. But at the end of the day, the most financially free are the ones with the most reliable paycheck. And so that's what we need to remember when we're investing as well. For me, I choose property because it's reliable. And I choose residential property because tenants like the house and they stay in there for years. And I get a weekly check and it's reliable. And I can pay the bills off it and I can buy the bread and milk with those reliable paychecks. And so, yes, if you don't know what you're doing, don't look for the exotic. Don't
stay
look
boring.
For the crazy. Stay boring, because it's really hard to beat 7% year on year. I did a live video training a couple of weeks ago, really just going through this of, if you just start putting 6% to work, and people say, oh, 6% is boring, and other people say 6% is impossible. It's not. Yes, it is methodical. Yes, it's mundane, but what you can do with just $300 a week into 6%, where you will be in a little while, is insane. But we've just got to, again, fall in love and embrace the reliability rather than looking for the exciting. Because, again, our relationship is so perfect because you don't go looking for those exciting things outside, right? You love the reliability of the family and everything about that. So what we have to remember is, if you're looking for something, if you don't know what you're doing, again, at least read a couple of books and just understand the difference between an asset and a liability. At least understand cash flow versus capital gains. At least understand some basics there. But if you go into an S&P, for us in Australia, my concept is, again, pretty simple here. Humans need food, they need access to money, and they need a roof over their head. Like, they're sort of the 3 tenets that the average person needs. So when I invest in property to help people put food, like roofs over their head. And then I invest in banks and shops because that's access to money and food. And so they're quite boring at the end of the day, but they're very reliable.
Yeah.
And not financial advice. This is just what works for us, but it's just a matter of what are the base needs of people. Because, again, when, anyone can make money in a good booming market, right? When things start to go back, people go back to their low risk base needs, but they'll always need a roof over their head. They'll always need food, and they'll always need access to money. And so in Australia, I just buy very simple bank stocks and stuff like that. If you don't have the money to invest in property yet, you can still buy into property funds. You can buy into, ETFs and that allow you just to start buying into property funds.
Have a fractional share or something.
And you just start to accumulate. And again, wealth is an accumulation, the snowball effect, as Warren Buffett says. And we talked about it a little bit before. I always love the concept of the secret of wealth. Mm-hmm. Like, you and your friends are, here every Sunday afternoon having a barbecue. Like, you didn't tell them the secret, did you? No, I didn't tell them the secret. Like, there's no secret. It's just so boring that we overlook it. The secret is build an asset and then use that asset to buy assets and repeat, build and buy assets and be committed to that long-term, understand compound growth, understand cash flow. And if you can just commit to that, and again, once you go through that learning process, our property takes 1% of our brain power. 1%. We just have to go through that learning process, and we can spend 99% on the business and 99% on each other and 99% on the really like entrepreneurial, exciting things. And we know that multiple six figures a year is just going to come in reliably year after year with 1% of our brain power. And it's just a matter of, and then every now and then the bank manager will ring and say, hey, things are pretty good at the moment. If you want to buy another one, you can. And so then we'll spend a little bit of energy, search 10, 15 properties, find the one that fits our profile. And then I don't want to know about it for 20 years.
Yeah.
Don't tell me about it.
I love it.
Because it's passive.
So for my crazy network marketing friends that are intensely interested in high risk stuff, knock yourself out. Go crazy on crypto, go crazy on Forex, go crazy on all these different things, but do it with a very small percentage. If you hit a grand slam with your very small percentage of what you can afford to lose, that's fine. When it comes to the real money, stay boring.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, we've done some crazy things as well over the years, for sure. So you'll get a phone call from a trusted friend.
Sure.
But again, it was always like, okay, well, we'll put 2 or 3% over there.
Yeah.
And none of them have worked yet. But it's okay because if you lose 50%, you only actually lost 1%.
Right.
We put 2% in, it went down 50%, but that's only actually 1%. When people go all in and it loses 50, 100%, and they lose 100% of their money,
back on the treadmill.
That's when things go really wrong. So again, when you have your business, you got your paycheck and your playcheck, have your base investments. And then once you have that foundation in place, then you can go, but personally, if I want to do something exciting, I'll just go jump out of a plane or something. I'll spend $500 to go skydiving. I won't spend $500 into a crazy investment. I'll spend the money doing stupid things like bungee jumping or skydiving, and I'll put the rest of the money into really boring assets. But the boring assets allow me to go skydiving.
Entrepreneurs,
that's my mindset.
Entrepreneurs, stay boring. So the way out, 7 steps to financial freedom through network marketing, and the way out together with Andrew and Angie Logan, which is the ultimate guide to building your network marketing business as a couple. So both of those, we'll put those in the show notes. But Andrew, thank you for stopping by and sharing some wisdom. I'm really grateful that you're here.
Absolute honor to be here. Thanks for having us.
So that's our conversation with Andrew Logan. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, you can find all the details on the books, the information, everything we referenced in the show notes. If you got value, please pay it forward to a friend. Give us a subscribe on the channel. Maybe even give us a rating on the podcast. It would help us spread the word. Until next time, go out there and make your life amazing. See you soon.